Records are sacred, and for stat nerds like myself, we hold them dear. But sometimes there are records nobody wants, and like herpes, they probably aren't going away. Just reaching the NHL is a major accomplishment, so let's never take that away from a player. But some things, no matter how unfair or unlucky they are, need to be highlighted. Now, before I get into this, let me lay down the ground rules again. If this is your first time to my channel, I'm so glad you found me. Leave a like or subscribe if facts and bad puns are your thing. If you're a returning subscriber, I love you. Please leave a like as well so I can keep on with these. You're truly the reason I keep doing this. And always, please comment your opinion, as every comment is welcome, even the hate, and let it be known I do read every single blurb and try to respond to them all if I have time. And lastly, if this isn't your thing, just move on. Nothing to see here.
Please disperse. Nothing to see here, please.
5. Fewest goals, 1,000 game career, Brad Marsh, 23. Playing in 1,000 games in the NHL is a major accomplishment. Typically on your 1,000th game, they stop to acknowledge your long career. You and your family gets out on the ice and everyone claps and takes a good look to see how hot your wife is. And Brad Marsh played in 1,086 games over a 14-year career with the Atlanta Flames, the Flyers, Leafs, Red Wings, and lastly the Senators, a career spanning from 1979 to 1993. The gritty defenseman was a former first-round pick and played a responsible stay-at-home style while entertaining fans with his toughness and strength. Scoring goals, however, not his forte, as he potted a whopping 23 of them in his lifetime. 23. And he played during the scoring era. Let's look at some data around how inept at getting his name in the box score he was. Simple math concludes that he scored 1 goal every 47 games during his career. That's less than 2 a season. In his rookie year, he played 80 games and scored not a single goal. In fact, Marsh didn't score his first NHL goal until halfway through his sophomore year, going nearly 120 games before filling his first net. In 1989, Marsh played 80 games and finished tied in goals with Ron Hextall. 5 times in his 14-year career, Marsh played a season and didn't score a single goal. To be fair, 2 of those non-goal seasons were shortened due to injury. 3,505 times in the NHL, a player has scored 24 or more goals in a single year. Some notables off this list that scored just 24 goals in a campaign are Joel Ward, who did it in 2014. Pete Stemkowski, a guy I've never heard of, did it 3 times in 1970, 1974, and 1975. And Craig Smith did it in 2014. Craig Smith. Okay, so you say those guys are all forwards. Here are some non-big name defensemen who rattled twine 24 times in a season. Brad Park did it 2 times in 1972 and 1974. Ron Greschner also did it 2 times in 1978 and 1981. And Carol Vadnais, how do you say that? Vadnai? He did it in 1970. I can't even pronounce the guy's name. And before you fire up that comment button, know that scoring was absolutely not Marsh's role on the ice, so his goal totals need to be taken with a grain of salt. To restate, he was not the most talented player, not the most gifted, but he made a career out of toughness, heart, and work ethic. But to give you some final perspective, Tanner Glass has 23 career goals. I know Glass is a forward, but we're talking about Tanner fucking Glass here. This guy couldn't score in a brothel, and somehow Marsh was worse than that. Number 4, most consecutive games to start career with no points. Cam Jansen, 82. Cam Jansen was a longtime enforcer/scrapper for the New Jersey Devils. In his rookie year, he led the NHL in fighting majors with 11. So while he was good at rearranging people's faces, scoring, however, was not his thing. On February 24th, 2007, deep into his second year in the NHL, Jansen scored his first NHL goal against the Washington Capitals. Not only was this his first goal, but also his first point ever in the NHL. After 82 games spread over 2 years, the equivalent of an entire season in the National, he finally logged a point. Over 336 games in the NHL, Jansen scored a total of 14 points, his season high coming in 2011 when he lit up the league for a total of 4. with one sweet-ass goal and 3 devastating helpers. This is amazingly bad scoring, again from a guy who wasn't hired to be on the sheet to pot biscuits, but I'm pretty amazed at how inept his first 2 years were, let alone his entire career. In fact, Cam is known more for making homophobic remarks on an internet-based radio show in 2012, which he apologized for, an interview in which he stated he's banged a few fat chicks and regretted it. I mean, we've all been there, right, Cam? Not sure if Cam is qualified to talk about scoring of any nature, but what do you think his over-under on fat chicks he banged versus goals he scored is? His tally is 6. I'm taking the over on that. Hey, I'm not here to judge you, Cam. Number 3, fewest goals allowed in a goalie loss. Mike Murphy, 0. I'm going to give credit to the website The Sportster for helping me find this gem of an odd record. And forgive me for trying to explain this one as well as I can, as this might be confusing for people who suffer from things like logical and rational thought. On December 5th, 2007, the Hurricanes were getting their asses handed to them by the Calgary Flames, 6-2. With 8 minutes left in the game, Cam Ward was pulled for recent AHL call-up Mike Murphy, who was also making his NHL debut. It must have been a magical debut, as Murphy made 2 saves and the Canes added 2 more goals, but eventually he was pulled for an extra skater, and at 18:51 in the third, the Flames dropped in an empty netter, making the score 7-4. And here's where Murphy's luck turned for the worse. The Canes scored 2 garbage goals in that last minute, and the final tally was 7-6. So Murphy, who had no part of Cam Ward's 6 goals from before and was drinking Gatorade on the bench when the empty netter went in, was saddled with the loss. How, you ask? The empty netter was declared the game-winning goal, and since Murphy was the goaltender before it happened, hockey logic made him the loser. So with that, Mike Murphy was the first and only goalie in the history of the NHL to have a loss on his slate before ever giving up a goal. Talk about getting blamed for something that wasn't your fault, like a married guy whose wife had a dream he kissed her best friend. Honey, it was a dream, damn it! Murphy would only play in 1 other game in his NHL career, stopping all 7 shots he faced again in mop-up duty, finishing with a save percentage of 1,000 and a record of 0-1. A loss he really didn't earn. Damn, son. Number 2, most regular season games, no playoff appearances. Ron Hainsey, 891, active. If Mike Murphy is unlucky, take a look at this next guy, Ron Hainsey. This American-born defenseman and former first-round pick in 2000 by the Canadiens has been in the National since 2006 and has had a solid career on the blue line, logging 250 career points and 386 penalties in minutes for the Blue Jackets, Thrashers/Jets, and Hurricanes. So over his 10-year career, he's played in 891 games, and one thing he hasn't done in his time in the league is take the ice for a playoff game, which is amazing when you consider that mathematically teams have a better than 50% chance every year to make the playoffs, since 16 out of the 30 squads make it into the bracket. So let's look at why his luck hasn't fared so well. His first 3 years, the Blue Jackets were a growing expansion team, and they finished sub 500 from 2006 to 2008. Hainsey gets traded to the Thrashers, and guess who makes the playoffs the following year? The Blue Jackets. With Hainsey on the blue line, the Thrashers reel off 3 consecutive years of nearly exactly 35 wins from 2009 to 2011. Then they became the Winnipeg Jets, and the futility continued for 2 more years, with Hainsey coming very close during the lockout year of 2013, where they missed the playoffs by only 4 points. As if things couldn't get any worse, Ronnie gets shipped to the rebuilding Canes, where they pick up 36 wins, 30 wins, and 35 wins respectively, and Ronnie's bad luck continues, and his old team, the Jets, finally make the playoffs in 2014. In fact, each team Hainsey has left has made the playoffs within 2 years of his departure. Talk about being a day late and a buck short. Or not. Hainsey was just acquired by the Penguins, and barring a major injury, he will appear in the playoffs this year, but his streak will be well over 900 games by the time that happens, likely an unbreakable record. Oh, and I bet you wish you had waited before you hit comment and typed in all caps, "Hainsey is on the Penguins now, you moron!" Good news is you can edit your comment to apologize, delete it, or have someone else respond to you with the timestamp of where this comment is in the video. Good luck, Ronnie. I hope the 10-year wait for meaningful hockey was worth it. Number 1, worst points percentage, head coach, George Kingston, .192, minimum 100 games coached. This record nobody wants is very unfair, much like Mike Murphy's record. George Kingston is a Canadian hockey bench boss who coached for a long time for the University of Calgary, and he parlayed his success there, a 245 and 128 record over 16 years, into an assistant head coaching job with the Minnesota North Stars in 1988/89. He went on to Norway, where he successfully coached their juniors, and then in 1991, the expansion San Jose Sharks came calling, and George agreed to take the job because a gig in the NHL in California has to be better than the bitter cold of Norway. Immediately, George starts his career off by getting screwed, as the Sharks were not allowed to draft Eric Lindros because of restrictive expansion rules. His patchwork roster included the following players: Pat Fallon, who led the team with 59 points, current Pittsburgh head coach and Stanley Cup winner Mike Sullivan, who was a rookie and was bouncing between the NHL and IHL at the time, a weathered Brian Mullen, who was at the tail end of his career, and guys named Jeff Odgers, Wayne Presley, Don Barber, Dave Snuggerud. You get it, they sucked. They did have former Norris Trophy winner Doug Wilson, who is their current GM, on the blue line, who had a solid career. Too bad for the Sharks. His time in San Jose were the last 2 painfully slow years of that 15-year career. So what did you expect? Major League? Hell no, the Sharks sucked in their first 2 years, and they sucked ass, putting up 17 and 11 wins respectively, obviously finishing dead last both times. I guess they needed somebody to blame for having Jeff Hackett and Jarmo Millis in net behind a bunch of rejects and geriatric expansion draft players. So Georgie was let go after 2 seasons, posting a final record of 28 wins, 129 losses, and 7 ties. Ouch, that's pretty bad. Luckily for Kingston, Dave Allison has about the worst percentage I have ever seen for over 20 games coached, when he rocked a 2-22 record for the Sens in 1996 for a point percentage of 100. Or 10%, which is terrible. Amazingly, Pierre Maguire has a point percentage of .396, and that's like pouring salt in an open wound for Kingston, as many people agree that as average as Pierre is at being a broadcaster, he was somehow way worse as a head coach. At least Kingston doesn't have a Crosby fetish, though. He's got that going for him. Agree with my list? Think there should be more terrible records on here? Leave a like, comment, or subscribe, and as always, I'm 5 Points Gaming, and you made it to the end of this video.